Hi folks, HR Funk here. Welcome to part 2 in my series on my new CCW handgun. In part 1, I identified my new handgun as the IWI Masada 9S or Masada Slim, and I explained all the various reasons that I selected this as my new carry handgun. In this part, I'm going to be comparing the 9S to the handgun that has been my CCW semi-auto for several years. This is my Springfield Armory Hellcat. This is one of the original versions of the Hellcat. This is the non-optics ready version. And I thought it was only appropriate to compare my new selection with my previous selection to see whether or not I was getting any performance improvement with the Masada 9S. So in this video, I'm going to be comparing the two handguns, and in the end, I will declare one or the other a winner of this contest. So here we go. Now, as we can see here from the outset, the Masada 9S and the Hellcat are fairly similar handguns. Both are polymer frame striker fire designs. The Hellcat, along with the SIG 365, was one of the original micro-compact handguns that were so popular a few years ago. The 9S is slightly larger. I would put it in the subcompact category, and there were various people who didn't like shooting the very small 9mm handguns because they felt the recoil was a little more snappy than they preferred. So the subcompact handguns like the 9S have become very popular, particularly the last year or so. The Hellcat has an 11-round magazine installed. It also comes with a 13-round magazine, and it has a 15-round magazine that can be purchased for it. The 9S has 13-shot magazines. It comes with 2 of those, and it will also take CZ75 pattern magazines that have higher capacities all the way up to, I believe, 17 or 18 rounds. So as far as capacity goes, there's plenty of capacity with both of these handguns. The 9S, as you can see, is optics ready, and I have the mechanic red dot optic installed. The Hellcat is not optics ready, as I mentioned during the intro. It does have these sights that I have always liked. And this big, bright front sight is something that has always been very easy to see when I bring the Hellcat up on target. And I generally get good accuracy with the Hellcat, even though it's a very small handgun. I have talked to some folks recently who have told me they do not get good accuracy with their Hellcat. All I can say is this one for me has always shot like a much bigger handgun. Conversely, the Masada 9S, the more I shoot it, the more I like it, and I talked about both in my original review of the 9S as well as the last part of this series, that the 9S, when I originally reviewed it here in the shop, I wasn't that crazy about it. Then I went out to the range and started shooting it, and the more I shot it, the more I liked it, and that continues to this day. There's one thing that I notice when shooting the Masada that I wish the 9S had, and that is this little textured area right here, and there's one on either side that can be used either to index your trigger finger when you are not shooting, or the thing that I really like is I index my thumb there for a thumb's forward grip when I'm shooting with a two-hand hold. And on the 9S, there's really nothing quite like that, and I did notice that when I was shooting this handgun after switching right from the Hellcat to the 9S. That just wasn't there, and I lacked that very positive point of contact, so I knew that I had the proper grip on the handgun. That's a minor note, but something that I wanted to point out as I was contrasting the two here on the bench. Also, when looking at the ergonomics of these two handguns is the grip frame, and hopefully you can see here, and if not, I'll turn these this way. The grip on the Masada 9S, as you can see, is significantly longer than the grip on the Hellcat. Now, part of that is because I have the 11-round magazine installed currently with the Hellcat and the 13-round magazine installed in the Masada 9S. And if I put the 13-round magazine on the Hellcat, these would be much closer. But since the grip frame on the Masada 9S is not dependent upon which magazine that is installed, you always have that nice long grip surface. And I think between that and the fact that it's noticeably slimmer than the Hellcat, it seems that you gain a degree of controllability when shooting the Masada 9S as opposed to shooting a handgun like the Hellcat. This feels a little blockier, and you get a little bit more recoil impulse, or at least a little bit more perceived recoil impulse, I believe, when shooting this type of a handgun. Now, looking at the texture on the Hellcat, you can see that it is somewhat more aggressive than the texture on the 9S. So that does aid a little bit in the gripping capability with the Hellcat, but I really didn't even notice that when I was shooting these two side by side. So to whatever degree that might be an improvement, it's really not perceptible when you're shooting this handgun. Both pistols have an undercut at the rear of the trigger guard to help the shooter get a higher grip. And both of them generally feel good when shooting, even with full power 9mm ammunition. Neither one of them, in my estimation, feels unpleasant. But as I said, some people definitely do not like shooting the full power 9mm in a handgun the size of the Hellcat. And the last consideration I'll discuss here on the bench are the triggers for these two handguns. The 9S has a softer trigger. It breaks with less resistance than the trigger on the Hellcat, and it also has a shorter reset. Even so, the trigger on the Hellcat isn't bad. It just requires a little more movement and a little bit more trigger finger force to release the striker, and it, as I said, has a longer reset. So to whatever degree that might be a concern, I did want to point that out. The Masada 9S does have the superior trigger between these two, but again, when shooting them side by side or back to back, I really didn't notice much difference in the trigger because I was busy concentrating on the sights and trying to squeeze off good shots. So in just a moment, we're going to head out to the range and see how these two handguns compared when I was shooting them head to head. But first, I have to explain the metric that I came up with as a tool for comparing that performance. And what I decided to use is a modified version of the Ohio Peace Officer Training Commission's Law Enforcement Handgun Qualification course. Now, for some of you who are familiar with this course, I'm modifying it on purpose. So there's certain things that I'm doing or not doing during the course of firing the course that you're going to pick up on. So don't come into the comment section and start yelling at me and telling me I wasn't drawing from the holster and that after each stage I wasn't scanning for additional threats and all that sort of thing. I know that because I am not evaluating myself as a shooter. I am comparing and contrasting the performance of these two handguns, and that's what I'm using this for. Anything that's involved that could be a variable, such as drawing from the holster, could throw off the results of the performance of these two handguns. For example, if I have a clean draw on one stage with one of the handguns and I fire my shots, and then when I use the other pistol on that same stage, I slightly flub my draw, it can affect the time that it takes to fire out those shots and also can affect the accuracy. So I'm trying to eliminate those things. I will be starting in a ready position for each stage, and I'm going to initiate each stage with my shot timer. Now, each one of these stages, when they're fired by police officers undergoing qualification, has a time limit. I am basically going to be ignoring those time limits. In each and every one of these stages, I am firing my shots well below the established time limits. In some stages, I'm firing it in half the time limit or less. Now, in all fairness, I'm not starting from the holster, so that gives me a little bit of an advantage. But after having fired this course for years and years and years and years, the times that I'm getting are not drastically different than what I'm getting when I'm starting with my duty gear. Also, I'm changing the scoring that I'm using, and I'm going to be looking at the accuracy as my primary determining factor for deciding which handgun wins which stage. If I have a tied score at the end of one stage, then I'm going to look at the times, and the pistol with the lower time to fire that score is going to win that stage. There are 7 stages to this course, and whichever handgun wins the most stages is going to win this evaluation. Now, obviously, I'm shooting the Masada 9S with the optic, and I'm also shooting my Springfield Armory Hellcat with the iron sights. So along with contrasting these two handguns, this is also going to be a competition between the two sighting systems. I'm using this target from my target sponsor, Targets Online, And when I shoot the various stages, there are going to be scores associated with where the shots strike the target. In the first stage, for example, I'm firing from a distance of 1.5 yards, and I'm going to be firing from a close quarter retention position, attempting to put 3 shots into the pelvic girdle of the target. Any shots striking inside the pelvic girdle are going to receive 3 points. Shots striking outside the pelvic girdle but in the target will receive 2 points, and any shots that strike anywhere other than the target are going to receive 0 points. A couple of last points before we head out to the range, folks. First off, in some of these stages, you're going to see me sidestepping one way or the other. That's just from habit, from firing this course so many times. That's part of the actual qualification course. I'm not practicing my dance moves. Also, on each stage, I'm going to be alternating the order of the handguns as I shoot them. So on one stage, I will start with one handgun, and on the next stage, I will start with the other handgun. That way, I'm not always firing a practice run with one and then firing the other one second, because that might give the second handgun an advantage. So with that out of the way, let's head out to the range and we'll see how both handguns did on stage 1, which is the close quarter retention position. So here are the results of stage 1. The Hellcat has 2 shots in the pelvic girdle, one of them that's out but still inside the silhouette. So these each receive 3 points. This one gets 2 points for a total of 8 points for the Hellcat. Those 3 shots were fired in a time of 1.62 seconds. For the 9S, there were 2 shots in the pelvic girdle, each getting 3 points. So there are 6 points, but this shot is just below the silhouette. Now on an actual individual, this would be a shot into the leg, but for my purposes in this evaluation, this shot is going to count as a 0. So the Masada gets 6 points for stage 1, and that was in a time of 1.74 seconds. So the Hellcat wins on both points for accuracy as well as the time. Stage 1 goes to the Hellcat. Now here's the scoring for stage 2. For the next stage, I'm going to be firing a failure drill. For the failure drill, I'm going to be firing 2 shots to the body and 1 shot to the head from a distance of 3 yards. And the shots to the body striking inside this center square are going to receive 3 points. If they strike in the next larger square, they will receive 2 points, and anything on the target but outside of the larger scoring square is going to receive 1 point. The shot to the head, if it strikes inside this center brain area, will receive 3 points. Shots inside this circle but outside the center brain area will receive 2 points, and shots on the head but outside the circle will receive 1 point. Any shot that does not strike the head at all receives 0 points. And here are the results of those 2 failure drills, again marked with the green stickers. And on this one, the Masada 9S has 2 shots to the body inside of the 3-point area, so that's 6 points. And the shot to the head is inside the center brain area for another 3 points, so it receives a total of 9 points. The time was 2.70 seconds. The Hellcat has 2 body shots in the 3-point area, but the headshot made it outside the center brain area and into this larger circle. So that gets a score of 8 points, but the time was 2.4 seconds. So again, we see that iron sight being faster than the dot. I don't have quite the degree of precision that I had with the Masada 9S with the optic, but the time is still very, very fast. So at close ranges, you still see generally an advantage going to the iron sights when it comes to the time of getting shots on target. But again, a little bit better precision, and the determining factor for which handgun wins which stage is the accuracy. And in this case, stage 2 went to the Masada 9S. Now let's take a look at the scoring for stage 3. The next stage is going to be an ambidextrous one-hand shooting stage, and for the first part I'm going to be firing right hand only, and I'll come up and fire 4 shots into the body of the target. Any shots striking inside this center square get 3 points. Any shots in the next larger square get 2 points. Any shots in the outer area of the target outside this larger square get 1 point, and shots that don't strike the silhouette at all get 0 points. And I've marked the shots from that right hand only stage with the yellow stickers. As always, I hope you can see these well on the white targets. I know the contrast is not that great. For the Masada 9S, the shots are 1, 2, 3, 4. And for the Hellcat, they are 1, 2, 3, 4. The Masada 9S that time around had 2 shots in the 3-point area and 2 shots in the 2-point area for a total of 10 points in a time of 3.80 seconds. The Hellcat has 3 shots in the 3-point area and 1 in the 2-point area for a score of 11 in a time of 3.96 seconds. So the Hellcat got the higher score this time around. It had the greater degree of precision, again owing largely to that big high visibility front sight that is just so easy to see. Even so, it was a little slower this time than the 9S with the red dot optics. So I found that to be a little bit interesting. We're at a distance of 12 feet as I fire this drill, and maybe we're starting to see the point where the optic starts to get a little bit more effectiveness in terms of helping to get shots on target more quickly. In any case, the Hellcat does win this stage. Now let's take a look at the scoring for the next stage. The next stage is going to be just like the last stage, only I'm going to be firing left hand only. Again, I'm firing 4 shots. The scoring is identical. Shots in the inner square get 3 points. Shots in the next larger square get 2 points. Shots in the body outside the larger square get 1 point. And shots that don't strike the silhouette at all get 0 points. So for the left-hand only stage, I've marked the shots with black stickers. And for the Masada 9S, I have 2 shots that are under this 1 sticker here, which is basically dead center of the target. So I was feeling pretty good about that for my non-dominant hand. On this stage, the Masada has 1, 2, 3 shots in the 3-point area and 1 shot in the 2-point area for a total of 11 points. Time was 4.07 seconds, so just over 4 seconds, and a very, very good score for the Masada 9S. The Hellcat has a good time, but the precision is starting to be a little bit less. And just as I said in the last stage, as this distance gets greater and greater, we see the benefit of that red dot sight. And maybe a little bit, especially since this is a non-dominant hand drill, we see some of the benefit of that full grip and a little bit greater controllability with the 9S. The Hellcat ended up with 1, 2, 3 shots in the 2-point area and 1 shot in the 3-point area for a total of 9 points. So round 4 goes to the Masada 9S. And by the way, if you don't notice, or you hadn't noticed yet, this is alternating back and forth, Hellcat, Masada, as far as which handgun is winning which round. So now let's take a look at the scoring for the next stage. On we go to a reloading drill from a distance of 7 yards. In this drill, I start out and fire 3 shots. After the 3rd shot, the slide is going to lock open on an empty magazine, and then I'm going to have to sidestep, reload, and fire 3 more shots. That entire drill has to be accomplished normally in a time limit of 12 seconds. I usually shoot at around 8 seconds. Scoring is the same. Shots in the center square are worth 3 points. Shots in the next larger square are worth 2 points. Shots in the silhouette outside the larger square are worth 1 point. Shots striking anywhere off the target are worth 0 points. So the reloading stage from 7 yards. Let's talk about the numbers first, and then I want to touch on a couple of other things. The Masada 9S from that distance of 7 yards with a reload and firing 6 shots has all 6 of those shots in the 3-point area. This one tried to make it out, but it broke the line, so it counts as 3 points. So that's a perfect score for the Masada 9S on the reloading stage. The time was 8.02 seconds. And you might have noticed my last shot having a little bit of a lag between the 2nd shot and the 3rd shot. And the reason was I lost the dot for an instant, and it took just a split second to get that back on target and then squeeze off my final shot. Had it not been for that, this would have been under 8 seconds, which is a pretty good time for that particular drill. Even so, even with that little bit of a bobble, 8.02 seconds is not bad, and again, that is a perfect score for the Masada 9S. Coming over to the Hellcat, I had 1, 2, 3 shots that counted for 3 points and 3 shots that counted for only 2 points. So the Hellcat ended up with a score of 15 in a time of 8.50 seconds. Now you notice that's about half a second longer than it took me to fire the drill with the Masada 9S. And what you might have noticed, after I fired my 3rd shot and the slide locked open, I came back and I hit the magazine release, and it did exactly what it did right there. Because of the length of the grip being so short, the magazine, and I'll try to bring this up here, hopefully you'll be able to see this as I come up. And let me change the focus a little bit here. The skin, or the flesh on the bottom of my hand, is stopping the magazine from falling out because of that short grip on the Hellcat. And I actually did an experiment with this later on. I had the same issue with the 13-round magazine. And that's something to be aware of, I think, with these very small handguns. And it's probably something that's not mentioned a lot. Chances of having to reload your defensive handgun, especially these handguns that have a magazine capacity of 11 rounds, 12 rounds, 15 rounds, 13 rounds, whatever, can be debated. But I think we can all agree, if you want to reload it, you want that magazine to fall free. And if you have a hand the size of mine and a grip the size of the Hellcat, you could have some issues there. Now, I cleared it quickly. I just came over with the hand that had my fresh magazine, stripped that magazine out, reloaded, and finished the drill. But I had to fire my last 3 shots more quickly, which is why the accuracy suffered a little bit. Still, not altogether bad accuracy. I've got 3 shots in the lung right there, so this bad guy would have still been having a pretty bad day. But with the longer grip of the 9S, I was able to concentrate on my sights, complete my reload fairly smoothly, and then fire out my remaining 3 shots, and the accuracy looks significantly better with the 9S. Really, the only thing that caused me a little bit of a lag time, as I mentioned previously, was losing the dot before I fired that very last shot. So now, let's move on and we'll take a look at round 6. Next, we have a 3-shot drill from a distance of 30 feet. And in this drill, I'm going to be firing from a two-hand hold at that distance of 30 feet. Scoring is going to be just like it's been in the past stages: 3 points for the inner square, 2 points for the next larger square, 1 point for the outer silhouette, and 0 if the shots don't strike the silhouette at all. And in a stunning upset, the Hellcat with its iron sights takes round 6. I've marked the shots with the blue stickers, and all 3 of those shots from the Hellcat are inside the 3-point area. The time was slightly longer for the Hellcat, with a time of 3.92 seconds for those 3 shots, as opposed to 3.28 for the Masada 9S and its red dot optic. Even so, the precision that time around was greater for the Hellcat. So again, it's coming down to the last stage, folks. We've got Hellcat, Masada, and I think Masada again, Hellcat. Anyway, it's tied right now. I'm confusing myself. But of the 6 stages that have been fired so far, 3 of them have gone to the Hellcat, 3 of them have gone to the Masada 9S. So now let's take a look at what I'm going to be shooting for stage 7. The final stage is fired from a distance of 50 feet, and in this stage I'm again going to be firing from a two-hand hold, and when I fire those shots from 50 feet, the scoring is going to be just like it was in these last few stages: 3 points in the very center, 2 points in the next larger square, 1 point for the outer silhouette, and 0 for any shots striking off the target. So wow, this was a nail biter, folks, coming right down to the last 2 shots with the Hellcat. And I ran out of colors, so I had to use the blue stickers again, but those 50-foot shots I marked with black X's on the blue stickers. I hope you can see those. For the Masada 9S, they are here and here. Both of those received 3 points. And for the Hellcat, they are here and here. This one made it just outside of that 3-point area. So this got 2 points and 3 points for the first shot. And that comes to a score of 5 for the Hellcat and 6 for the Masada 9S. So 1 point separated these 2 handguns in that last stage. Looking at the time was about half a second faster with the Masada 9S than it was with the Hellcat. Again, I think we are seeing the benefit of that optic at greater and greater distances. So 4 rounds go to the Masada 9S. 3 rounds go to the Hellcat. The Masada 9S, my new concealed carry semi-auto, wins this evaluation, but I don't think this tells exactly how close this all was. I want to talk about a few other numbers before we wrap things up here. So wow, folks, if you look at the possible score on this course, the way I set up the scoring, it's a 25-round course and a maximum possible score for each shot of 3 points, which means there's a maximum possible score for each handgun of 75 points. The Masada 9S got 68 out of those 75 points. The Hellcat got 65 of the 75 points. So only 3 points difference between those 2 handguns on the entire course, if we look at it that way. If I add up all the elapsed times from both handguns all the way through the course, the Hellcat has an entire elapsed time of 27.36 seconds, and the Masada 9S has a total elapsed time of 26.6 seconds, which is about a 3/4 of a second advantage for the 9S over the entire length of that course. This was extremely, extremely close, folks. And it was so close, in fact, that if I went out and reshot this, I very well could end up with the Hellcat winning rather than the 9S. And the thing that strikes me about this is for all the talk, all the videos, all the print, all of everything else that's expended covering topics like ergonomics and triggers and sights and optics and what have you, it always, always, always comes back down to the level of skill possessed by the person who's doing the shooting. I was very happy with the performance of both of these handguns, and truthfully, my Hellcat's not going anywhere. My plan is that if I want to maximize my concealability, because the Masada 9S is a little bit larger, particularly with the optic, so if I'm going somewhere and I want to have my most concealable semi-auto, I'll be carrying my Hellcat. On the other hand, if it's somewhere that I'm going to be able to conceal my handgun a little easier, maybe it's wintertime and I'm wearing heavy clothing or what have you, and I would prefer to have the additional advantage of the optic, then I'll carry the 9S. But again, I was very, very happy with the performance of both of these handguns, and kind of happy with the way I shot. And that's going to do it for this video, folks. If you stuck with me through the whole thing, thank you. As always, if you have any questions or comments, be sure to forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 5% off your purchase from Optics Planet. Also remember the discount code from Hot Munitions. If you go to Hot Munitions, you can use my discount code there, which is HRFunk10, and that'll save you 10% off your purchase from Hot Munitions. And don't forget the Target sponsor for the channel. Go to Target's online, check out their Target inventory, and see if they have anything that's going to meet your Target needs. See you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.